The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by the Seniors Foundation and key benefactor BVH Architects. You can check out online information for older adults at seniorsfoundation.org.
I'm Lita Powell Drake, and we're looking at a drawing of the Capitol building in Lincoln, Nebraska that was done by a 7-year-old boy at Elliott School in Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, through the passage of time, that little boy has grown up, and he is now the Capitol administrator. I want you to meet Bob Ripley. Bob, I'm so glad you saved that wonderful
I'm so
drawing.
delighted you used that drawing too, Lita.
Did you save it, or did your mother?
No, my mother.
Oh.
It's more of a memory of a great childhood and wonderful parents that someone would hang on to such a piece of quote-unquote artwork for all these years and be able to give it to me in my senior years.
But it's so special. It's so special now that you had it all these years and that you did it when you were 7 years of age. Now, what was it about the Capitol that caught your attention when you decided, I'm going to draw the Capitol?
Well, it was ever present. Elliott School, half of the classrooms look onto the playground, which then, of course, look onto the skyline with the Capitol in it. And most, I think, 4 or 5 of my 7 years at Elliott were spent on the playground side of the school. So I was always viewing it. Our front porch had a view to the Capitol. Our back porch had a view to First Plymouth Church. So I was surrounded by great architecture my whole youth.
So it wasn't something you had to do for class?
No.
You did that on your own?
Voluntarily. I did a series of them.
I want to thank Bob's mother for saving that picture. It is so very, very special. And you use Crayolas. Now, if you look at the drawing again, see how large the birds are. They kind of look like condors.
I'm sure they are.
But to a 7-year-old child, see, look at the condors are taking over. I thought it was a scene from Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds. But we've got everything. You've got the sower in there. You got trees. You got the sun.
It's the whole landscape, you know. It's the view from Elliott.
Well, this guy has been working at the Capitol for almost 30 years now.
Correct.
And I'm sure in a lot of interesting jobs along the way till you got this top job as Capitol Administrator. And now the president of the board of the American Institute of Architects.
Yes, the state board.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Bob.
again. Thank
All
you.
right, today, what we're going to take a look at is usually when you see pictures of the Capitol, they're of the building or the inside of the building, which is fabulous. And I hope it's not been too long since you took a visit. They have tours every hour, on the hour, except for the noon hour, and they're free. So we want to encourage you to visit the Capitol. But what we're going to do today is to take a look at Goodhue, Bertram Goodhue's design, not just of the building, but the environs and what you see and the approaches. It's something you may not have realized. And Bob's going to explain some of these things too. Where do you want to start, Bob?
A good introduction. Bertram Goodhue not only designed a building, but he had a design for how the Capitol would sit within the capital city. And fortunately, the city, through the City Council and through the legislature, created a commission, a 7-member voting body, 2 state and 5 city representatives, to oversee the ongoing care and preservation of the setting of the Capitol within the city of Lincoln, the capital city. And oversight of 2 primary geographic areas. One are the view corridors, which are the distant views a person enjoys as you come into the city from both the county and the city level, and we have some city images. One of those view corridors is right here, is the one you see as you exit Interstate 80 to drive on 180 entering the city.
You know, Bob, the first building I ever saw when I came to Lincoln, Nebraska over 50 years ago was the Capitol building. And I was ignorant. I said, what is that? Is that a big silo? Look at that on the right. Look you can see it all the way. 25 miles away, you can see the Capitol building in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Correct. Well, the view corridors are clearly one of the aspects. Another is the Capitol Environs District. And what you're seeing here is the view corridor map. It's a star shape at the center of which is the Capitol. The top arm that you see on this map is actually the view you just saw from Interstate 180. And to the lower right is a view from the Holmes Golf Course Clubhouse. And to the lower left, for instance, it says 9D, are 3 views from Pioneers Park, designed into that park in the 1930s when Ernst Herminghaus helped plant it as well.
Look at that view. Isn't that amazing? And I just read recently, with the new design that's going to go into a clubhouse at Holmes.
Correct.
They're going to tear down the old building so it will not obscure from the Holmes golf course. You'll be able to see all the way back to the Capitol.
That's
so
correct.
From Pioneers Park, the beautiful trees, and also out at Holmes. Great views. And Interstate 80 and...
Correct. Parks Department has done a real good job of knowing that was a predominant view of the Capitol, and the new clubhouse will take advantage of that view.
How did they control the cutting of the trees in order to keep that view?
They were in fact planted in that fashion.
Oh.
There were 3 such view corridors in the park. If you remember coming off of Coddington on the east side of the park, you drive in a road that's not perpendicular to Coddington but at an angle. That angle is actually the line from which the bison, as you travel up the hill, the bison is in the center of a circle. The bison looks exactly at the Capitol. If you stood over his shoulder, you'd look down that road, flanked by trees on the side, and see the Capitol in the distant skyline.
And what's the difference between a bison and a buffalo?
Same thing, as
Well,
far as I know.
because I call something a buffalo. Well, in fact, I was talking about this, and I said, you know, when you stand at the buffalo, you can see the Capitol, and somebody said, no, that's a bison. I looked in the dictionary, and they're the same.
Tomato, tomato, I think.
So, yeah. And then as we move in from out, those beautiful views out, and we're coming closer to the city, what are we seeing?
You start getting into what is known as the Capitol Environs District. The distant concern of the Environs Commission is, or the view corridors, and once you're in the city, there's a district around the Capitol and flanking the 4 axial malls, north, south, east, and west, which you see in this image. The last image you saw was of Centennial Mall, which is very soon going to be undergoing a serious renovation. It's a $9.5 million project, of which 2/3 of the money has been raised through city and private funds, and it won't be long, and we'll have an entirely new Centennial Mall under construction, which will be a fantastic improvement.
Now, is that the distance from the Capitol all the way to the university? Is that what you're talking about?
It is. In the Environs map, you see from the Capitol 7 blocks north. The district actually goes to S Street beyond, which includes the buildings at the end of the mall. To the west or left on this map shows County City Building, which we'll see an image looking down Lincoln Mall there. To the south is Goodhue Boulevard. There's the image looking from the Capitol down Lincoln Mall to the County City Building. And these are all parts of the Capitol environs. There are some 50 to 60 city blocks involved in this district, which have design guidelines which guide what new construction must be within the district and other improvements that the Environs Commission every month meets to oversee.
Well, what about those fountains that are there now and some in disrepair, et cetera, that line all the way from the Capitol building to the university? What about them?
The new Centennial Mall will have fountains. They won't be precisely like the ones we have now, and the ones we have now have really serious mechanical problems, so they'll be replaced. There will be water on the mall, just not in the form it is right now.
Well, you think about when that was built. So it really took 10 years to build that Capitol, 1922 to 1932. Did they go in, the fountains went in early? No, were they?
Fountains were put in 1967,
Oh.
so between 22 and 67 we're looking at 45 years. So
Oh, yeah.
It still follows the concept Goodhue wanted for the area surrounding the Capitol, and Larry Anderson, who was the landscape architect for the original Centennial Mall, knew this very well, and the original mall was a very compatible design, as is the successor to Mr. Anderson. Clark Anderson Partners are doing the new mall design along with Tom Logging from the university, which we'll see within the not too distant future on all 7 blocks instead of just 2 blocks at the north and 2 blocks at the south.
Wasn't Bertram Goodhue something else? I mean, really amazing to have that vision, not only of the building itself, the 7th wonder of the world, but also, you know, to go that far out, 25 miles out, to be able to get a good view of our Capitol. The interesting thing is, remember when they used to color postcards because we didn't have the color processing? Well, we have a color picture. I love this. When was that taken?
That is roughly a World War II era image taken on what we know today as Goodhue Boulevard. It was known then as South 15th Street, but 7 blocks south of the Capitol, starting at A up to the Capitol, are a series of medians that were installed by the city of Lincoln in 1912, 10 years before the current building was under construction. And that is the quality of environment that you saw in that postcard that we're working to return Goodhue Boulevard to today.
And also to get those fountains in Goodhue's original design, there were fountains in the environs right in the courtyard.
Correct.
And so we're going to find out what the status of those are right now. So there we go. If we take a look at that last slide,
Sure.
which there we go, the
Well,
old
this-
black and white one. So that was taken when?
This was taken in the, as near as we can tell, in the mid-1930s. We do not have an exact date. What it does show is Herminghouse's plan with plants in place. We're still missing some plants at the very perimeter, but this gives you an indication of what some of the landscaping was to look like. However, right at the center of the courtyard, in all 4 courtyards, is this round plug of grass, 12 feet in diameter. Of course, that is kind of a pedestal waiting for a monument, and Goodhue's design, which we have in the drawer at the office, shows a fountain to be placed in all 4 locations. They were slightly varied one courtyard to the next, but they would be magnificent improvements. And we have the very good fortune of a member of the Nebraska legislature who, a year or more ago, a gentleman by the name of Senator Scott Price from Bellevue, mounted a private sector fundraising effort to raise the $1.5 million it will require to put the courtyards in the, put the fountains in the courtyard. So we're very anxious to continue progress in that regard as well, because it's really the last feature of the building intended to be constructed but is yet to be built.
Yes. Well, some little things are building around the Capitol building, the Falcons. What's the status of the Falcons these days? Are they giving you any trouble?
Well, they're still in residence,
Yeah.
much to our delight. We work with the State Game and Parks Commission on keeping track of them and banning the chicks and intruding into their domestic life. But they are a great asset, not only from the standpoint of their environmental and wildlife curiosity feature, but they also are a great deterrent for large flocks of pigeons.
Oh,
We were
pigeons.
very,
Yes,
very
pigeons.
detrimental
Well, we
to
know
the
what
Capitol.
pigeons do, don't we? And I just have to tell you this thing. If you've been to London and seen the statue of who was the great Winston
Nelson.
Churchill
Or Nelson at the Trafalgar?
Yeah, yes, you're standing with the hat, and Winston Churchill I'm thinking of.
Oh, uh-huh.
You know what was happening? The pigeons were pooping, if I can use that term.
They have no respect.
On television.
They have no
Were
respect.
pooping on his head. And you know what pigeon guano, I'll change the word,
Correct.
does to that kind of surface? It wrecks it.
Right.
So actually what they did in London is to put an electric shock in Winston Churchill's head so that every time a pigeon lands, it shocks him. Now, should we raise some funds in order to get that for the Falcons?
Well,
Or the pigeons?
the falcons are our shocker for the pigeons.
Oh, they are.
A pigeon sees a falcon and they get as far away as they can. So they're a great asset to us, not only environmentally, but as well keeping the pigeons away, because they're, as you say, pigeon guano with rain forms an acid, and it's very destructive to almost any material in a building.
And you're against anything that's destructive to that building.
That's true.
Bob Ripley, thank you so much for this. Is fascinating, and all those years at the Capitol. And I know you loved it when you were 7, and you continue to love it now when you're 37.
Thank you very much, Lita.
Thanks, Bob, very much. And we'll be back with more Live and Learn right after this.
Getting older or caring for an older loved one isn't easy, but there's no need to go it alone. Aging Partners offers you unbiased expertise for your aging journey. We'll help you navigate staying healthy and fit, ever-changing financial and insurance mazes, and making sure your home fits your needs, all while maintaining your independence and having some fun along the way. Call Aging Partners today to begin your journey.
Welcome back to Live and Learn. My name is Chris Beckenbaugh. My guest is Julie Caravas, who is a practicing attorney here in Lincoln with Baylor Evnen Law Firm. I've invited Julie to talk with us today about guardianships, as the courts in Nebraska are going to be applying some new rules in Nebraska as of January 1, 2012. Want to remind everyone that Julie's comments are general in nature and cannot be applied to every situation. Always consult a legal professional for assistance with any legal matter. Well, welcome, Julie. Thank you for willingness to share with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
In general terms, can you explain what is a guardianship?
Yes, a guardianship is a situation in which the court appoints, the county court appoints a qualified person to serve as a guardian for a person who may need additional protection, who isn't able to look out for their own best interest and their own welfare.
Okay. And can you give us some examples of why someone would need a guardian?
Yes, generally a guardianship is put in place for someone who lacks full mental capacity. That could be due to illness, due to the result of an accident, sometimes aging, and we see this as people start suffering from dementia.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In the state of Nebraska, who can be a guardian?
A guardian, you know, we're talking about people that may need protection, and we're talking about generally adults. But I should point out that guardians can also be appointed, and in some situations need to be appointed for minors, people that are under the age of 19. And a parent is a natural legal guardian of a child. But for our purposes, we'll just be talking more about adults. And a guardian, the state law does provide for a list of priorities in terms of who could be guardian. And typically that's going to be a spouse, a parent, an adult child. It can even be a relative that may have lived, that the person who needs the protection may have lived with for a period of time, 6 months or more, or it could even be as far stretching as someone who's provided financial assistance. And the court will look through those priorities, but it should point out that even if someone has priority, perhaps a spouse is available, that if he or she wishes not to serve as guardian, then they may actually nominate someone else, and the court will listen to that and weigh that.
Okay. So the court decides, and you said it was the district court?
Or the county court.
County court
yes.
decides who is suitable to be a guardian for a
Yes.
person. Why would someone want to serve as a guardian for another person? And you just alluded to this, but what if
Yes.
they don't want to serve?
Right. And I should also point out, when you were asking why someone may need a guardian, and I had said that generally they're not going to have full mental capacity. And the things that we look at or that the court is going to look at to make sure that this person receives the appropriate protection is, are they able to choose where they're going to live? Are they able to choose the appropriate medical care that they need? Do they need representation? Maybe there's some legal action going on, or even to apply for and obtain benefits, be them public or private. So why would someone want to be a guardian? Probably a good time to point out that the guardian does have, the law looks at it as though that person will have the same power, rights, duties as a parent would have over a minor child. So someone that's going to want to be a guardian is going to have that feeling that they want to provide adequate protection for someone. The court can allow for reasonable compensation to be paid for someone that has stepped in as a guardian. However, I will point out that this is not something you want to do to be financially rewarded. But just as a parent might find it rewarding to be a parent of a child, there could be that same sort of intangible reward.
And as a parent and a grandparent, I can say there are
Yes.
many intangible rewards, right?
Yes, yes.
We would agree on that.
Yes.
So if someone doesn't want to serve, there are provisions where they can go back to the court and say, not something I can take on.
Absolutely. In
Okay.
all of these things, you had pointed out at the beginning that it's necessary for someone to actually seek legal counsel, to talk to their own attorney if they want to be a guardian or if someone thinks that they need a guardian. But the things that we're covering today are very general in nature, and so who might be a guardian, who might not, you actually have to go through a whole process. There are hearings involved. There are certain documents that need to be filed in the court. And so certainly the court would look at priorities, who could serve, but if someone doesn't want to, then there's particular ways with that process that we would say in legal terms that they're going to renounce their interest, their ability, or their priority, and then they can nominate someone else.
Okay. We've touched briefly that there's going to be some new rules in 2012, and those are going to apply, as I understand it, to the selection process and how those guardians are going to be qualified to be guardians.
You are correct. The whole intent with this is the court felt that there was a need to have additional protection measures in place to protect these people that need someone to look out for them anyway. And the people that are being protected may not notice a difference. The process will be the same. There's going to be more hoops, if you will, that the people that are petitioning to be guardian that will need to jump through. There will be criminal checks, background checks on anyone who's petitioning to be guardian. There's going to be credit checks to make sure, because there might be times that they would be handling funds of these people. So a lot more things in place, plus the reporting aspect of it. Just in real simple terms, it may be in the past that there needs to be a report saying, yes, I've observed the person I'm protecting on these days, or I made sure they went to the doctor this year, or this was the account balance in their bank account at the end of the year. Those same things will need to be done, but there will need to be specific dates listed. There will need to be specific bank statements attached. So it's just much more protection.
Is a guardianship always a permanent relationship, Julie, or?
No, it is not. Most people think of it in terms of that, and when you're going to put a guardianship in place, you need to provide to the court documentation or evidence, generally a doctor's report that this person isn't able to do those number of things that we talked about to care for themselves. And if you want to take the guardianship away, because the guardian really steps into the shoes of the person they're protecting, and that person practically does not have their own voice anymore, and it's only the guardian that's going to be able to act on their behalf. So if we want to end that relationship, we again need to show the court that the circumstance for which the guardian was appointed no longer exists. If it was an accident, there was some brain damage, but there's been improvement, then that could maybe be that relationship can be removed.
Well, besides these changes that are taking place now, I understand the legislature is looking at some possible legislation in this next session related to guardianships. Are you familiar with that and how that might impact our viewers?
I am somewhat familiar with some ideas that are out there. I would say, first of all, I never like to anticipate what legislation will be there, and it could end up different in the end. But typically, there's going to be an eye towards more protection, again, more safety measures. But this is a perfect example of why someone should contact their own attorney if they have an interest in a guardianship. Maybe they want to petition for someone, because even if I were to tell you what some of those ideas might be, to our average listener, and understandably, it may appear that it's not going to make much of a difference, where in terms of processing the legal paperwork, it might.
Julie, there's so much information here. Yes. We have just a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to ask you really quickly, what is a conservatorship and how is that different than a guardianship?
A guardianship looks at the well-being of the person, and a conservatorship is more focused on the assets of the person. There can be some overlap, and again, it depends case to case, and each person interested should consult their attorney. I will add, though, one thing we have not touched on is a power of attorney.
Okay.
And a power of attorney document is something that you and I could and we should have in place, which allows someone to act on our behalf for a lot of these things we've talked about, the same thing that a guardian or a conservator can do. But you or I have control of that. We do not need court approval, and we can have someone act when necessary and yet we can still retain our own voice. Whereas with a guardian and a conservatorship, that is court governed, it's court controlled, and the individual being protected really doesn't have their own voice anymore.
So Julie, is getting all these various relationships established and paperwork filed and all of this taken care of, is that an expensive proposition?
It does take time, and you are going to make an investment in this if it's for someone that you want to be protected. Going back to the comment I just made with the power of attorney document, I can tell you, and I won't speak for everyone in the legal community, but I think we would all agree that the amount of investment that you would put in making sure you have power of attorney documents and maybe other estate planning documents in place, on average, is going to be far less than the expense that will be incurred in getting a guardianship in place.
Well, we want to encourage all of our viewers that anyone needing advice on a guardianship, if you feel like there's someone in your life who could use that sort of help and protection, that you should contact an attorney to discuss your options. And most attorneys, I would say, would be willing to discuss those costs up front.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
That is.
Well, Julie, you've provided us with a wealth of information. There's much more on this subject, and we always encourage our viewers to have their affairs in order. And perhaps some of our viewers will make meeting with their priority and doing some planning, estate planning for this new year, a priority. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Remember, it's never too late to live and learn.
Moving to a senior living community is a personal decision, and when you're ready, consider the Eastmont Towers community.
Our son, who lives out of town, said, "Oh, this is pretty nice. This is great. This is not what I thought it was at all." And I think he was thinking of something more institutional, and there's nothing institutional about it.
To learn more about the art of living well, contact Eastmont Towers or visit our website at eastmonttowers.com.
Welcome back to Live and Learn. My name is Sam Truax, and today I'll be talking to Houston Doan, the financial and insurance counselor for Aging Partners Family Services, and we'll be talking about the homestead exemption. Does the homestead exemption have something to do with acquiring property as a pioneer in Nebraska, Houston?
Well, it could have, but no, realistically, that's our name for property tax relief for certain individuals in our society, namely those that reach the age of 65 and they own and occupy their own home, or with a very limited circumstance of a disability.
And when I was in Texas, the qualified citizen was a person who had lived in their home for a certain amount of time. Is that the same kind of qualifications we would have in Nebraska?
It's different. It's different. In Nebraska, of course, you must own and occupy the home the first of the year that you're applying for your homestead tax exemption. But also, and more importantly, in the state of Nebraska, there is an income, or if you would say a means test, to see if you qualify. Now, the important thing to remember about looking at that income figure that changes every year, it goes up every year, is that this income figure is an adjusted income figure, which means that you can subtract from your gross income things like your Part B as in boy premium, your Part D as in drug premium. If you have long-term care insurance, you can deduct that premium. If you have a Medicare supplement, you can deduct that premium. And then, of course, any out-of-pocket expenses for, let's say, co-pays for prescriptions or eyeglasses or dental. All of these things help reduce that total amount of your income, and many people are really kind of unaware that they do qualify.
Yes.
Usually low-income people know that there's something out there. The thrust of our efforts are to really get those people that, are kind of on the borderline, a little higher in income, to get them some relief.
That's it. When you're saying adjusted income qualifies you, you mean there are lots of adjustments in.
There are, and we get to subtract that from the gross number.
So there's also some veterans benefits qualifications or disabled and things like
There
that
are.
that also
Yes.
qualify you beyond just age.
Right, yes. And again, as I pointed out earlier, the disability qualifications are really very specific and in some instances very severe. If you just got a disability determination from Social Security and we're getting benefits, Social Security disability benefits from, let's say, a bad back, that may or may not qualify you for your homestead exemption. So it really it's worth people that think they may qualify and who do have a disability and are under the age of 65, it's probably worth a phone call to either our offices or, again, quite candidly, remember this program is county specific. So they could contact their county assessor for additional detailed information on, do I qualify? I have this kind of disability.
Well, what would the benefits of the people going through all of that process? It sounds like, you know, it could be extensive research on your part or the part of the assessor's office.
Well,
so what benefits do you think the people would have in going through that?
Okay, well, I always say it's worth the effort. Quite candidly, depending on the value of your home and your income, many people will get up to 100% relief or benefit from their property tax, which of course, as you know, in this state, is one of our largest taxes. So I think that anybody, again, anybody who thinks they're even maybe kind of close should think about going through a little bit of effort. Quite candidly, 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops, we can pretty much determine, hey, do you qualify? Do you come close? Maybe we should check next year. We can find out. And the savings can be immense. Matter of fact, for our lower income people, it oftentimes makes the difference whether or not that person gets to stay in their home.
That kind of benefit seems like would be that all citizens, all older citizens should actually look into it with that kind of a benefit. But as you say, you know, not all people understand that they can qualify. So
well that's true. Yeah, and again, as I said, people with higher incomes may not qualify, obviously. Yes. But as I recall, last year's number was about $37,400. And remember, that would be an adjusted number.
Number.
You know, if you had, let's say, some high medical expenses through the year, your income could be $45,000, $50,000 for a couple, and you might actually qualify for some relief under the homestead tax exemption program.
Is there some time frame when people actually need to apply? And
I'm glad you asked that question, because yes, there is a timeline, but the interesting thing about a homestead tax exemption is that you need to reapply every year for this exemption. Many other programs, you do it one time and then it's kind of self-perpetuating. No, every year you must reapply for your homestead tax exemption. Now, typically, once you're in the system, you actually get the forms from your county assessor. It comes in the mail. Typically, it will come February, March, in there sometime, and you have up to and through June to do this. So really, January 1st to the end of June is kind of like the enrollment or the point in time where you can turn in your paperwork for the exemption. Recently, they did enact some additional statutes that if, let's say, you were critically ill or in a nursing home and couldn't get the homestead exemption forms in a timely manner, there's actually now kind of a what I call get out of jail free card, where you can, you know, do it a little later with a certificate from a doctor and whatnot. So, but mainly January 1 to the end of June.
Well, it must take the county quite a while to evaluate that, because when the people qualify, it's going to reduce county taxes, and so. Well,
that's a good point. Again, I'm glad you brought that up. No, it doesn't reduce the amount of money, the tax that our counties get in tax revenue from property. As a matter of fact, when someone does qualify for the homestead tax exemption, the state backfills those dollars so that there really is no loss in our local county programs from these revenues.
Well, how do people get the forms and or get help to apply? Again,
Well,
you mentioned that
yeah.
call you and or
The county assessor, remember, again, this program is specific to counties, and they should go to their local county assessor to get the right forms. The assessors then will process the forms, pass them on to the state of Nebraska. The state of Nebraska then in turn makes the final determination whether or not Sam gets his homestead exemption.
Well, I've had you on the program before to talk about Medicare and other things, so you seem to have a few areas of expertise. What else could people talk to you about?
Oh gosh, well, I'm one of 2 insurance and financial counselors within our offices, and there have been a number of big changes in the last 3 years, specifically to Medicare. One of the biggest changes that a lot of people don't know about is that we just went through open enrollment for Part D, prescription drug benefit. They changed the law this year. This year, for the first time, you get the opportunity anytime during the year to actually switch your prescription drug plan.
I was going to say it's too late for them to do anything, but not this particular year.
Yeah,
it's going to
this
be
year
next year.
we can do it one time.
There you go.
And of course, there are a lot of what I call caveats or hurdles to jump over.
Just like there is for the homestead exemption.
Yeah, just like the homestead exemption. But quite candidly, it's the first time since they introduced the program in 2006 that a person actually, if they find themselves in a program that is not, just not working, that we can help them perhaps find a plan that would be more advantageous for them. That's one of the big things that I think has come up. Yeah.
I want to thank today's guest, Houston Doan of Aging Partners, for telling us about the homestead exemption. Live and Learn will be back in a few minutes.
Getting older or caring for an older loved one isn't easy, but there's no need to go it alone. Aging Partners offers you unbiased expertise for your aging journey. We'll help you navigate staying healthy and fit, ever-changing financial and insurance mazes, and making sure your home fits your needs, all while maintaining your independence and having some fun along the way. Call Aging Partners today to begin your journey.
I wonder how many of you had the Kodak box camera. Remember this wonderful camera? If you were going to take a picture, I'm going to take a picture of you right now. Okay, I got to hold it down. I got to hold it down now. Okay. Oh, you look good. Of course, I won't be able to see it for a long time because it has to be developed. Now, I think I'm going to take a horizontal picture of you. All right, there we go. Smile, smile. There, I got it. Now I got it. Oh, I forgot to forward. That's the problem. Oh, this old camera, this was developed by the Eastman Kodak Company in 1888. That's the good news. The bad news is in 2004, the Kodak Company stopped making film cameras. And in 2009, Kodak stopped making the Kodachrome film. So folks, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to make the transition to digital photography. I know, I know it's hard, but we have an expert with us today. I'd like you to meet on Live and Learn. I'd like you to meet Bill Hager, who is a photographer in Lincoln, and you at one time shot on regular old-fashioned film like all the rest of us, but you made the transition to digital. What forced you to do it?
Well, I did start with film, and I was always carrying a camera with me, and as I started to get more serious about my photography, I would try to learn from the good images and then not so good images. And so when digital cameras came along, it became evident it was going to be easier to become better at some things with the camera if you could see your your picture right away. So
Now, that's a great advantage.
it is an advantage.
But it's hard. I mean, it's hard to make that transition.
It was hard initially because I was pretty attached to my film cameras, and and the type of digital camera that I wanted to use was a pretty expensive camera. So I started with not as expensive, a point and shoot style digital camera.
What do you mean? Oh, say point and shoot.
A point and shoot would be similar to this. This is a newer point and shoot. The point and shoot camera that I started with was much larger. But what this did was it allowed me to introduce myself to the digital technology, how the digital camera worked, how to use the camera, and I was immediately hooked on the fact I could see what I was getting for a picture when I was right after I took the picture. And so it wasn't uncommon for me to use the digital alongside my film for a while. I would take both to the field. And eventually I got tired of carrying the film and sending the film in for processing and that kind of thing like that. So the digital took over, and now that's all I have. That's all I use is digital.
Some people who really love film. Now this is an old film camera. This is mine, but I love the quality of this. This is really wonderful stuff. This is a Canon EOS. And so what I would do, during this transition which we're having to make from film to digital, I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So what I would do is shoot on film, claiming that film is a better quality picture. Then I'd take it to Walgreens and have them transfer it to a CD, which then I could load into my computer, and that's the way I was operating. However, you look at the size of this and the weight of it. I mean, these cameras are big and heavy. And I remember I took my granddaughter whitewater rafting down the Colorado River last year, and I was going to take this along to get some pictures, and then I realized I can't have this in the raft. I'm going to lose it. It's a wonderful camera, and I love it, but I can't. So here's the deal. We have to, unfortunately, make the transition. And so when you think about the difference, so let me hold this up so you can see it, the difference in terms of weight and size, I mean, this is a blessing in many ways, because you can just stick it in your purse, you stick it in your pocket, and it's there when you really want it. Okay, so you were in the military, and that's when you first started taking pictures and getting serious about photography.
I was. I think there's a picture up there now that was taken along about, I think I had been in the military about 20 years at that point, so I was starting to think about another career. And I had always carried a camera around with me, and I'd taken a lot of photographs, mostly wildlife and outdoor type stuff. But at that point, I started to enroll in some classes and get some formal training on photography, learn the fundamentals, and so I would combine those academic lessons with all my time in the field, and it helped me a lot.
Okay, you've gone through that, Bill, and to help our audience determine if they're going to, and when, I guess not if, when you're going to make the switch to digital photography, what should they be looking at? What do they have to think about?
Well, one of the things would probably be what do they want to photograph? If they are going to photograph things like wildlife and landscape type stuff,
or your grandkids,
like I do. Yeah, of course, if you're photographing grandkids and things like that, it's probably going to be a little bit different equipment. There's another image up there. This was probably one of, I took this with film. This is a scanned digital image of a shot that I took when I was still using film. And so that was probably one of the better ones. I was pretty proud of that shot. It told the story of that sharp-tailed grouse.
Okay, so you shot this on an old film camera.
That was a Canon A1. I used a Canon back in those days.
Then you transferred that.
Yes.
See, that's one of the advantages also. You can transfer it.
There's technology out there now that will allow you to take your old slides and other images and transfer them to a digital image file.
Now, you're retired military, 26 years in the military,
yes.
But your passion was really photography? Was it hidden? Or?
Well, I think my passion was for the outdoors.
Oh.
And so photography was a catalyst for spending more time in the outdoors. And so with that, I'm sharing the outdoors with all these creatures in this beautiful landscape wherever I am. And so it was natural for me to start trying to photograph what I was sharing the outdoors with, and my goal was to get better at what I was doing. It was purely to take really good pictures.
To get better at whatever we do.
Yeah, Nebraska's got a pretty good history of outdoor wildlife style photographers, so I had a pretty good challenge ahead of me there to get good enough to feel like I could compete with maybe somebody that was doing it professionally.
Well, we have some beautiful landscapes. We don't think about it sometime, but if you actually just stop and take a moment's look, and I will take a look at a picture now, which ordinarily you might have thought, with just the skyline, oh, but wait, look at that, to capture the electricity coming down at nighttime. So it's right there ready for us if we just open our eyes and aperture.
It's out there. There's no doubt about that. This is an example of something close by. I do some traveling and do get away from Lincoln, but I also photograph in my yard around Lincoln. There's lots of parks, there's lakes and things around there. But this particular image was a night image taken as a thunderstorm had just passed through Lincoln. We were on the backside of it. But
how did you get the lightning bolt?
It was just it was a technique where you try to have the shutter open at the time, and then you leave it open for a period of time to allow it to gather enough light to make a picture. And so this was not the first one. This was actually the last one after about an hour of trying to capture lightning shots. But that one, with the lightning bolt coming down and catching those wires, there was actually a baseball game going on over there, so that the baseball stadium was lit up.
Well, so that's it. That's at Oak Lake.
That's at Oak Lake Park.
And you can see the reflections of the buildings in the water. That is an extraordinary picture. And is that a black cloud? There was a black cloud up there?
There was a black cloud. I think you can see the lightning kind of moves. It moved from a couple of those clouds, I guess, transferring electrons down to those wires. I think that may be how it works.
So location?
Yeah, location.
That's a key, and it's all around us if we just open our eyes.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. We're going to show you another picture of Bill Hager's photography. Now, when I first look at this, I thought, well, what the heck is that? That's just the bark of a tree. I mean, that's no picture.
Right.
So what were you thinking?
Well, I was working on a project when I stumbled across this owl who was on a nest, and I didn't know that much about it. It's a great horned owl. And through my work with this particular subject, I learned a lot. I actually did some research, and I made a couple of hides, blinds, places that I could photograph from that were away from this hole in the tree where she was nesting. My goal was to not interfere with what she was doing. I did have some longer lenses.
What was she doing?
She's sitting on a nest.
Oh,
and so for about 14
that, no.
weeks, about 14 weeks, I spent a couple times a day, varied the time of day, and I photographed her and eventually photographed the two owlets that she had through the point where they fledged, and I actually I followed them to where they would hunt in the evenings. And of course, it's difficult to photograph evening and nighttime hunting without them knowing you're there, but I was at least able to observe that behavior and learn a lot about not only the mating process and how long it took for them to be on the nest, and then how long it would take before the owlets would fledge, but then the transfer, they would leave the nest, and then they would learn to hunt and learn to be on their own. And so that it was about a 14-week period where I was pretty consistent with going over there in that area, and it was really close to where I live in town, so it made it easy for me to pop in and out of there. And it was a very very rewarding experience for me to not only
14 weeks with that little or big great horned owl.
Right.
Well, that's dedicated. That must be the passion that you have for photography. Well, it shows when you're going to take that kind of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do enjoy being out there, and the things that you see. You know, I could probably talk for a couple of hours about stories associated with this particular project or this subject, because I spent a lot of time there, and I saw not only the owl, but I saw a lot of other things.
When you just go out and look around, you will be absolutely amazed at what is there. So Bill went out into a field, and look what he shot and captured the beauty of the simple days.
Right. This again was close to where I live. just out for an evening drive. I think it was in June. And I saw this area which had a lot of flowers, and the light was really beautiful that day, so I ran home and grabbed a couple cameras. And I spent about 45 minutes there. I worked a lot of different angles, backlit, front lit, side lit, different focal lengths, and
now wait a minute, you said backlit, frontlit, sidelit. Now
yeah,
someone's just out there with their camera
the
and they
light.
take some pictures
Yeah.
of some daisies. So what do you mean?
I was working on trying to photograph them with regard to where the light was hitting the subject. Okay, so these were backlit, so you can see all the.
Oh, you waited for the sun to do that.
You could actually move. You can
okay.
move your position with regard to your relation to the subject that you're photographing. But anyway, it was one of those areas that was in full bloom for a few weeks, but the light wasn't always the same. So after I found it that day, I went back a couple other days and tried to catch it. But this was an evening time period. The light was really nice, and so.
Now, I've heard that the light in the morning is the best light. Is that correct?
Most people will agree. The evening, that golden hour.
You mean it's the sunset,
the
now,
morning,
sunrise?
the morning and the evening. That hour right after sunrise for an hour, and the hour right before sunset, is because of the angle of the sun and the way the light is projected on the landscape. It's a pretty popular time to be out there.
Well, speaking of the landscape, let's look at the landscape of Nebraska. Now, here is a simple road out in the Sandhills,
Yeah,
right?
this is out in central Sandhills. I've been spending a lot of time out there the last probably 25 years. I've basically claimed that as my second home, and actually plan to have a place there soon. But again, I was looking for a quiet place. I'd been going there a lot. There's a lot of beautiful landscapes out there. There's lots of wildlife.
But look at what that picture says to me. The loneliness, the isolation, the starkness. So what is just looking like a simple road, it actually magnificent in what it says, what you can read into it, or what's there.
Yeah, I really enjoy being out there, and I enjoy photographing the Sandhills. It's a beautiful area.
All right, and of course Mother Nature is abound with opportunities to shoot. Now, here's what he did with a little bluebird.
Right. We're also fortunate here in Nebraska to have be on the edge, or in Lincoln anyway, on the edge of a migratory corridor where we have wildlife, birds that migrate through in the spring and then in the fall. And this particular image was taken up in the Sandhills this past fall. And I was just out there, and it was in that period right after the sun had come up. So it was in the morning, and I was not specifically trying to photograph bluebirds, but while I was in this blind that I was in, trying to photograph some other wildlife, I ended up having a whole flock of bluebirds come through, and I assumed that because of the number of birds, that there was probably some kind of a migration relation going on there, where they were coming through on their way south.
What I like about that picture is the really out of focus in the background. So how do you do that?
That usually has to do with your aperture setting on the camera. I like to do that sometimes because it will emphasize your subject in this this particular situation. The background being a little out of focus. The colors are similar to the bird. The patterns of the colors are similar to the coating on the bird, and so it was just the right technique.
And since Bill loves the outdoors, the wildlife of the whooping cranes is also a magnificent thing to be able to see right on the water's edge. So if you look carefully, he's captured it. Now, this is not the Sandhills crane, right?
No, this is the whooping crane. It's an endangered species. The numbers that are left in the wild range between 250 to 350, somewhere in that range. This particular image was taken one fall a few years ago. I was up on the Niobrara River doing some camping, and I actually was looking for these guys to come through. The sandhill cranes were migrating south. whooping cranes will sometimes migrate similarly. And so I happened to see them landing on the Niobrara River in the evening. And so my plan was to get up early the next morning and try to photograph them in the area where I saw them. And so the biggest thing is to see them and locate them and then be able to find them again. So the next morning I found them. They was foggy for about an hour and a half, and so I had to wait out the fog, and luckily I found them. The benefits of photographing them there with regard to them being an endangered species, conservation efforts are there to try to sustain the areas that they need to have in their migration and where they nest and different things like that. So having the opportunity to see them and then be able to photograph them was very rewarding.
And that picture was in Nebraska Land magazine.
It was in Nebraska Land. I do contribute over at Nebraska Land with some of my images, and that one was in there. It was also used on the cover of a quarterly circular for the Nature Conservancy.
Okay, now you know you're a professional picture taker. Myself, and I'm sure many of our audience are not. So we have to be aware of this transition. Remember, the box camera ain't gonna cut it anymore. I'm sorry, folks. And then even the beautiful old film cameras, which is wonderful. I'll try to use this as long as I can, but I think its days too are numbered. And I paid a lot of money for this, and these cameras they're getting expensive. Now, this is cheap. This is cheap. One thing I don't like about it, I'm gonna open this up here. Okay, wait, no, Ariana. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I don't have my. Get going. Okay, one thing I don't like is to shoot a picture from this distance, because first of all, you can't hold it very steady. Mm-hmm. I like the heavy old cameras so you can grip them and hold them. The thing is, this is very convenient. No, okay. Okay, I got it. Anyway, and just show them really quickly the camera. Is no, your big camera? Is that okay? Is that your favorite camera?
This is one of the cameras that I use. This is a digital camera. Obviously, it's a digital SLR, so I can change lenses. It does have a larger screen and a lot more buttons on it. But the important thing to remember is to photograph things that you like and use what you have and get really good at what you have, learn about what you have, use it, have fun with the photography, and then share your work. And so these cameras are really rugged, meant to go a long time and be very efficient at what they do.
Well, once again, I'm afraid we're going to have to make that transition to digital, whether we like it or not. But Bill obviously likes it, and he has certainly the passion to do it. What do? You must have shot thousands of pictures by this time. How do you store them, and what do you do with them?
I have storage hard drives that I keep the digital image file.
On the computer, so you can't do this without the computer.
It's pretty difficult. Yeah. So I've managed to keep buying hard drives and keep the images on hard drives backed up a couple different times. And so that's where they're stored. Mm-hmm.
And somebody could buy your pictures, couldn't they?
They do. They do buy. I sell a few prints, and they're all available. When they're printed in magazines, obviously they're out there for people to enjoy. So yep, that's my goal.
Photographer Bill Hager has been our guest on Live and Learn today, and we're going to leave you today with some of the more beautiful shots by this young man. But he's retired, so he's one of us. It's okay. Bill Hager, Photography in Lincoln. Let's take a look at some of his lovely shots.